Hey guys, welcome back, or if you're just joining me for the first time, I'm truly grateful you're here. I'm Silo Kavanaugh, and today we are having a longer, deeper heart to heart about something that completely transformed my life. And that is healing my inner child. We're going to explore how those old hurts from the past just keep showing up in our adult behaviors, sometimes quietly, sometimes awfully loud, and how we can start offering that younger version of ourselves the safety, love, attention, and protection they may never have fully received. This isn't about like blame or digging up the past and just staying stuck in this old trauma story. It's about compassion and awareness and finally stepping into more freedom and authenticity. So get comfortable, maybe pour yourself something warm to drink or cold, like me and my lemonade. I always say grab your journal if you want to jot some things down and take a deep breath with me. Let's just ease into this together. Breathe in for 4, hold for 6, and out for 4. And let's get started. So now that our bodies are settled, we're going to talk about the inner child healing and take a deep dive into what does that actually mean. So your inner child represents the emotional imprint of your early years. The part that still carries both the natural wonder and curiosity and playfulness of your childhood, but it also carries the negative side, the fear, the shame, the sadness, the anger, the rage. That arose when your needs were not met. Your need for safety, for connection, love, those things were not met. So like in my own life, this journey really began, there were the parts of childhood, but it really began at 16 after the traumatic event that deeply disrupted my sense of safety and especially around intimacy and trust. Those experiences shaped patterns that followed me literally 24 years of marriage and gradually just became toxic. And, even in the adult entertainment industry where I believed I was reclaiming my power and my agency, I was really living in a trauma bond based on that trauma that happened to me when I was 16. But in 2014, when I had my serious car accident, it really was an awakening, a profound turning point. Because recovering from 5 surgeries in 5 years, I realized I could no longer outrun this inner pain. It was time to heal not only the outside, but the inside, and especially the energy, the soul, the spirit. That moment really opened the door to dedicating myself to healing, shadow work, trauma recovery, and this so important inner child healing. This work is so important because the unhealed inner child, that part of you that feels all those emotions, those wounds often underlie challenges like anxiety, depression, self-sabotage, perfectionism, people-pleasing, which is all I did, burnout, which is so easy to happen, and really just getting stuck in a cycle of repetition in relationships and really like going for the wrong person, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I've been told I don't have a good picker. As we heal from this, so We break old cycles and we begin to show up with more presence in our work, in our relationships with each other, and especially, more than anything, which is the reason I created the self-love circle, is the relationship with ourselves. Because we are just projecting onto others what we feel within here. Literally, we're mirror beings. We're mirroring each other all the time. Projection, reflection, projection, reflection. So until we take care of this relationship within ourselves, then any relationship outside of ourselves is going to be fractured. So that inner child is both light and those dark, heavier emotions. It carries the desire to play and create freely, but it also carries the pain of those unmet needs. So here's a helpful framework, and to help with the distinction between different types of trauma. Everybody has trauma. Everything is trauma. Literally, the reason for being a human is trauma, so that we can feel it all. But there's big T trauma, which refers to like your major overwhelming events, such as the assault, such as the serious car accident that I had, or any kind of violence. These major traumas, they're typically recognized as trauma. But then there's the little T trauma, and I've talked about this literally for years, but it involves the more subtle, repetitive experiences that we just downplay, act like they don't exist, like ongoing criticism, critiquing everything about you, emotional neglect, feeling unseen, bullying, having to mature too quickly. These are all things that really were wrapped up in my own world, and they shape your nervous system over time. So like when little T experiences, and sometimes those big T experiences, are prolonged or repeated, particularly in childhood or a long time relationship where escaping from that was almost impossible, then that can develop into something called complex PTSD or CPTSD. And this includes the core PTSD symptoms like flashbacks, avoidance, hypervigilance, along with some additional challenges like difficulty regulating your emotions and your nervous system, like a deeply negative self-loathing concept of yourself, a lot of chronic shame, and just feeling broken. Unfortunately, the significant struggles happen in relationships, and especially trust issues and abandonment. These come along with CPTSD. In my experience, the event at 16 was that big trauma, but decades followed, added layer upon layer upon layer of little T traumas, and that resulted in the CPTSD. I remained in a 24-year marriage largely because of my wounded inner child. She was terrified of abandonment. For 10 years, while I stayed totally monogamous, I later learned that my other half had not. Even after discovering this, my fear was so strong that I continued doing everything possible to hold that marriage together. People pleasing, ignoring my own needs, abandoning my own self, and walking on eggshells, just in hopes of earning that love and stability. The relationship evolved like cycles of criticism mixed with occasional affection and then emotional neglect. And it really created this like strong trauma bond. Trauma bonds occur when the nervous system becomes attached to that unpredictability, that high and then that low. And literally that's what my relationship was. Is crazy highs when we're high and really bad lows when we're low. And it really made it feel impossible to leave. On top of the fact that I had built a whole life around that person. My inner child was just replaying old abandonment and rejection wounds. So I just repeatedly chose what was familiar, which is the pain, over the uncertainty of, am I going to be alone? This prolonged self-abandonment just made the shame worse, just made the regulation worse. The patterns of seeking worth externally, way worse. Just like, hey, see me. It also led to other choices, such as entering the adult entertainment world to, like I said before, reclaim control and power over myself. But in hindsight, these were still only the CPTSD, rewriting those old feelings of being powerlessness. Discovering the term CPTSD really just brought a lot of relief. It offered me like language, and I started to feel some self-compassion over, the self-judgment. It helped me explain, like, what are these walls that I put up? Why do I push and pull people back and forth? Why am I hyper independent? What is people pleasing? And really has been a big part of my search for safety in all these unsafe situations I put myself in. So does any of this resonate with you? If it does, please know that you don't need a single dramatic big event like my car accident for this work to be meaningful. You still need this inner child work, because all those little T that build up into this complex trauma, they create real protective survival patterns. And healing those is very valid and very powerful. So these wounds often appear in our daily lives in, these recognizable ways. There's patterns to them. These are some that have affected me. So obviously the abandonment and rejection wounds, they manifest as clinginess, like that ownership or that jealousy, or they're just the opposite, which means you are an avoidant. You are emotionally distancing yourself because you don't want to get hurt. And in my marriage, I kept one foot in the door, one foot out the door, while simultaneously doing everything that I was asked to do just to prevent being left. That not enough shame wound, it shows up in I got to do everything right, or I'm overworking, or I'm people pleasing. The people pleasing was way me. For years, I remained on anxiety and depression medication while presenting this version of me that I thought would be acceptable to everyone else, and to avoid confrontation, everything. The girl that never said no. My inner child was literally simply longing for unconditional love. The control and the trust issues, they lead to hyper independence paired with this subtle testing of others. Like in the adult industry, I thought I was stepping into this empowerment and this strength, but most of it was my own wounded self attempting to just resolve these old feelings of powerlessness. The emotional neglect, that can appear in really difficulty identifying your needs, which, oh my gosh, I've even had people ask me what kind of music I listen to, and I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. Because I'm taking over responsibility for everyone else, and I've abandoned me. I stayed in that marriage far longer than was healthy, placing that idea of family, that I had to be my family, above my own well-being. And until my car accident, I was lost. It woke me up and prompted me to finally choose myself. So these triggers, they may feel like overblown. In other words, like your partner needs some space. And instead of you taking that as your partner might just need some space, it activates this intense panic response, or this overthinking, or feeling like you've done something wrong when it has nothing to do with you. Or like the mild criticism of you might evoke this childhood shame of trying to be perfect. And instead of seeing it just as what it is, you have an emotional response to it. These are really your inner child signaling that red flag, this feels familiar. Learning to pause, this great pause, and I've expressed the great pause before, but pause. And instead of reacting, use the metacognition, the thinking of your thinking at that time. When you start to feel those feelings, ask yourself, how old do I feel right now? What does the little me need in this moment? Because it will be a total turning point. It creates this space between the reaction and the response. And you can use this within your own relationships, external relationships too. The empowering part is that we can reparent ourselves. Our adult self, the self that's going to protect you, you can provide that consistent safety and love your inner child that needs it so much. It supports the healing of those like big T traumas, the little ones, the CPTSD. Here's some practices that I've done throughout my healing. One is called inner child dialogue. And it's a good point to start. So in a quiet moment, visualize yourself at the age that wound feels stronger. So say abandonment. Or for me, really, it's that 16-year-old or that woman trying so hard to hold her marriage together, because that's the abandonment. But instead of feeling that abandonment, speak gently to yourself. I see you. I hear you. You're safe. It wasn't your fault. I love you exactly as you are, and I'm not going anywhere. You can say it aloud. You can whisper it. You can just write it down. Another one is mirror work. Every day. You know, brush your teeth, get up in the morning, look into your own eyes through that mirror, and tell yourself, you're worthy. You're just enough as you are. I got you. I choose you. I see you. Even if I don't even want to see you right now, I still see you. It will feel silly at first, and you'll be like, what is wrong with me? But trust me, if you start the day off with a negative response, then go in and consciously change it. Journaling is another option. Go in there and write it down. If you brought your journal today, answer these prompts, like consider these things. What triggered me today? And why? What earlier experience did it connect to? Once you figure out the trigger, go in and write a letter to dear little Scylla, you, dear little whoever you are. Offer love and safety, and then respond as your inner child. What does that inner child need today? Does it need rest? Does it need grace? Does it need safety? Does it need to be seen and heard? Or maybe you need to go out and play. Get outside. Get in the sun. Play is essential medicine. It's literally everything. So make sure you dedicate some time to the, little inner child. Dance to the music you like. Color. I love to paint. So eat stuff that's not even necessarily good for you. The whole point, the intention is just enjoyment. Whatever speaks to your inner child, without any need for producing or productivity. For your nervous system support, especially if you have CPTSD, the breath work, the shaking your tension from your body, which we'll talk about some other time, placing hands on your heart or your belly, closing your eyes, talking to yourself, explaining that maybe it's difficult, but I'm here. I'm safe now. And I choose me. These things were just invaluable during my divorce, through my recovery. And then, of course, for the deeper work, reach out to a professional, a therapist, a coach, someone that fits your idea of support. There are things that I also use, such as somatic movement, dance therapy, yoga, sound healing, trauma-informed coaching, and that's what I do. You don't have to navigate any of this alone. So make sure you, at this point, I'll say, join my self-love circle, and I'll give you more information about that in a minute. With consistent practice, you'll likely notice a lot of meaningful changes, like self-trust. You learn to pause and reduce the times that you just react crazily, intensely. You build boundaries. I'm the worst at boundaries, but I understand healthy boundaries now. You get more fulfilling relationships, and you naturally return to a place of grace and joy, and you stop abandoning yourself. And my life after that car accident, leaving my toxic marriage, breaking the trauma bond, and finally committing to this inner work, I now live in a place of truth, my authenticity, rather than just a crazy survival mode. My inner child feels seen and protected and celebrated. I can be vulnerable without falling apart, and I can honor my body. And, sexuality comes from empowerment rather than wounding. This same freedom is available to you. Healing is rarely linear. There will be good days and there will be bad days. But we're going to celebrate every small step, and this is part of it. So, like I said, join my self-love circle on Patreon, patreon.com/self-love circle. Check out my website, selflovecircle.com, if you'd like to sign up for a one-on-one consultation. Thank you for sharing this time with me and for holding space for your own healing. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to write it down, as I always say, and try it in the coming weeks. I'd like to hear your reflections on my social media, and we're in this together. You've got this. Your inner child is ready to come out and play and feel a little safer. Be good to yourself. I'll see you next time.